23,000 feet above Germany. March 6, 1944. The sky is thin. The air is freezing. And at the very back of a B-17 flying fortress called Hell's Fury, one man is about to change how gunners fight a war. Not a general. Not a famous ace. A tail gunner. Staff Sergeant Michael "Mad Mike" Donovan. You know the stats. Tail gunners usually died quietly, watching death come straight at them from 6 o'clock. Donovan chose something else. He chose to attack. You are watching War Era Records. If you respect the courage of the men who fought in the air war over Europe, make sure you subscribe and stay with us to the end, because this story is not just about kills. It is about how one stubborn gunner turned fear into a weapon. South Boston to the back of a fortress. Michael Donovan grew up in South Boston, in a neighborhood where talking last usually meant bleeding first. His father worked the docks. His older brother fought Golden Gloves. Mike's education was simple. Hit first. Hit hard. Do not wait. By 17, he had a reputation. Dozens of fights behind him. Scar over one eye. Broken knuckles that never healed straight. He lost a few, but always for the same reason. He waited too long to swing. He never forgot that. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Donovan did not think about strategy or speeches. He went straight to the recruiter and signed up for the Army Air Forces. The Air Corps wanted him fixing aircraft. Ground crew. Safe, practical. He told them no. He wanted guns. At gunnery school, his instructors noticed the same thing his neighborhood had learned. Donovan leaned into danger. He stood a fraction longer in the exposed position. He opened fire faster than the training script said he should. He wanted to shoot before the enemy got comfortable. One instructor pulled him aside. "Sergeant, you are too aggressive. You expose yourself too much. You are going to get yourself killed." Donovan's answer spread through the school like a rumor. "Dead men never pull the trigger. I plan on being the one who shoots." He did not graduate first in accuracy, but when they timed target acquisition, when they measured how fast a gunner could spot, swing, and fire, Donovan was near the top of every board. His secret was not mechanical. It was mental. While everyone else waited for the target to enter the correct firing zone, Donovan was already planning where the fighter would be, 1 or 2 seconds ahead. Hell's Fury and the Cursed Tail. In early 1944, Donovan was assigned to the 390th Bomb Group at Framlingham, England. His new home, a B-17 that already had a legend of its own. Hell's Fury. 3 missions. 2 of them nearly ended with the aircraft torn apart by German fighters. Her tail position had a new reputation. Cursed. The previous tail gunner, Eddie Morrison, survived, but after the last mission he climbed out white-faced and shaking. He told the crew chief, "Next guy back there is a dead man. I want reassignment." When Donovan heard that, he did not hesitate. He volunteered for the tail. The pilot, Captain James Whitmore, did not just sign the forms. He called Donovan into the briefing room. "You know the odds back there?" Whitmore asked quietly. "Tail gunners have the worst casualty rate. A big chunk never finish their tour." Donovan shrugged. "Then I still like my chances. Someone has to be in that seat. Might as well be the guy who shoots first." Whitmore watched him, weighing sanity against necessity. "You sound crazy." "I sound alive," Donovan replied. Whitmore finally gave a thin smile. "Welcome to Hell's Fury." First missions, wrong script. Donovan's first combat run came on March 2, 1944. Target, Schweinfurt. Ball bearings. The lifeblood of German machinery. Most tail gunners were taught the same routine. Let the fighters come. Hold fire. Wait until they are close enough to be sure of hits. Protect your ammo. Protect your ship. When Luftwaffe fighters began to form up behind the formation, the other gunners did what they had been taught. They watched. They waited. They tracked the lead enemy fighter. Donovan did not. 2,000 yards out, when most gunners were just starting to tense, his twin-point 50s erupted. Long range, low-probability shots, tracers reaching out through seemingly empty sky. He did not expect kills. He expected panic. And that is exactly what he got. The German formation wobbled. One fighter broke off, then another. The elegant attack pattern they had drilled over and over suddenly turned messy. Their timing was gone. Later, on the ground, the crew chief looked at the numbers. "You burned through 80% of your ammo on one mission," he grumbled. Donovan just pointed at the unscratched fuselage. "And the price for that," he said, "was we did not take a single hit." Sounds like a bargain. On March 4, his second mission, he refined the idea. When a group of Bf-109s began their run from 6 o'clock high, every gunner's instinct said, "Shoot the leader." Donovan aimed at the wingman. The pilot in front is tense, expecting fire. The wingman is focused on holding formation, trusting the pattern. Donovan stitched the second aircraft instead of the first. The result was brutal. The wingman blew apart in midair. 1 second the leader had a partner on his wing. The next second, he was alone in a cloud of fragments. He broke off instantly, and the entire attack fell apart. Donovan was not satisfied. Disrupting enemy runs was good. He wanted something better than good. He wanted a system. The problem nobody noticed. Back in the barracks that night, while others smoked and played cards, Donovan sat with a pencil, a notepad, and a thin intelligence brief on German tactics. He underlined the same pattern over and over. German fighters formed up behind the bombers. They prepared in neat elements, 4 to 6 aircraft. They picked their axis of attack. Only when everything looked perfect did they dive in. The key was simple. They controlled the start. The bombers responded. The attacker owned the clock. The defender just tried to guess when the punch would land. Every manual he had ever seen accepted that as natural. Donovan did not. What if the start time is mine, he thought. What if I force them to react before they are ready? He was not looking for heroics. He was looking for initiative. He did not know it yet, but he was building something that later instructors would call a doctrine. March 6, 1944, the day everything snaps. 3 days later, Hell's Fury got her next mission. Target, an aircraft plant near Augsburg. Predicted opposition, heavy. Intelligence estimated thousands of German fighters across the region. In the pre-flight briefing, Captain Whitmore went over the usual points. Altitude, formation, flak belts. Then Donovan raised his hand. "Sir, I want to adjust how we fight from the tail." Whitmore gave him a hard look. "We have procedures for a reason, Sergeant." "Yes, sir. And those procedures give us a 30+% chance of not finishing the tour. They are not working." The room went quiet. "I want to engage while they are still forming up," Donovan said. "I want to break their attack before it ever becomes one." Whitmore thought for a long moment. "You get exactly one mission to prove you are not going to get us killed. If this goes badly, you are off the guns." "Understood." "Understood, sir." They took off at dawn. Climbed through gray English cloud into blue. Crossed the channel. Turned inland over occupied Europe. The routine of bomber crews, long hours of tension, broken by bursts of blind terror. At 9:19, the comm ended. Bandits. 6 o'clock high. Multiple contacts. Donovan slid fully into the tail position harness, pressed his face to the sight, and saw them. A dozen Bf-109s. 2,000 yards out. Composed. Lining up. Just as the training diagrams had always shown. Standard doctrine said, "Wait." Donovan squeezed the trigger. His guns thundered and the sky lit with tracer lines. Most rounds cut through harmless air, but the formation reacted like someone had kicked a hornet nest. The neat line shattered as pilots instinctively yanked away from the unexpected fire. The attack that should have hit them like a hammer turned clumsy before it began. "Cease fire, tail." "You are wasting ammo," Whitmore barked. "Wait," Donovan said. "Watch them." They did. When the fighters regrouped, something had changed. The aggressive, confident setup was gone. Instead of a clean dive, they poked at the formation, testing, uneasy. The initiative had shifted. For the first time, the men in the bomber felt the hunters flinch, turning the tail into a blade. The German pilots tried again. This time, one of them committed fully. A veteran. Donovan could see it in the way the fighter held its line through his sight. He let the aircraft close. 1,500 yards. 1,200. 1,000. Any other gunner would already have been firing desperately. Donovan waited until the enemy fighter filled his view, then poured a solid stream of bullets into the precise spot it was about to occupy. The Bf-109 flew straight into the storm. Its engine burst into flame. Pieces spun away. One kill. No celebration. No time. The rest of the wave split. Some came directly from 6, some from 7. If Donovan tried to cover both angles, he would cover neither. He trusted his crew. Waste, you own 7. I am holding 6. With all his attention locked on the fighters charging down the center line, he picked off the leader. Then the new leader. In seconds, the attack dissolved. 3 fighters tumbled away in bits of burning metal. The remaining Germans broke away. Not to set up a second textbook attack, but to flee. Up front, Whitmore let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Tail just swatted 3 of them. In one pass, the radio operator shouted. But the fight was not finished. The Luftwaffe was not done. Outnumbered 48-1. 15 minutes later, more specks appeared in the distance. At first, they stayed back, shadowing. Watching hell's fury. They had seen what happened to the earlier attackers. They called for help. Soon radar and reports painted an ugly picture. Dozens of enemy fighters, merging in. When you add the new arrivals to the ones already circling, you get a number no bomber crew wants to hear. 48. 1 bomber, 1 tail gun position, staring down a small air force. The manual said, close ranks. Rely on overlapping fire from the formation. There was just one problem. Hell's fury had drifted. The nearest friendly bomber was miles away. No escort in visual range. Captain, Donovan called. They are still organizing. This is our only window. Let me hit them first. With what? Whitmore shot back. You are halfway through your ammo already. With what I have left, Donovan said simply. If we wait for them to do this their way, we are dead. If I break them now, we might live. There was a pause. Do it. Donovan did not aim at a single aircraft. He aimed at the space where their discipline lived. The fighters converging behind Hell's Fury still looked organized, still neat, still measured. They were at about 2,000 yards when his guns roared again. He held the triggers down and dragged his sights right through the center of their forming pattern. Bullets flew into the invisible structure of the attack, the gaps they needed to maintain spacing. 1 fighter caught fire and spun away. 2 panicked pilots turned too hard and collided. No careful timing survives when death suddenly fills the space where your plan was supposed to be. In an instant, the textbook assault dissolved into chaos. Fighter elements scattered, their perfect geometry ruined. The bomber crew watched in stunned silence. Did we just stop all of them? Someone whispered. Not permanently. But long enough. From superstition to schoolhouse. Hell's Fury made it to the target. Bombs fell. The crew turned for home. They limped back to England scarred but alive. Holes stitched the fuselage. Control surfaces were cracked. Hydraulics leaked. The airframe told the story of how close they had come. On the ground, the crew chiefs counted bullet strikes and cannon hits. Then they opened the tail ammo boxes. Empty. Every single round fired. Captain Whitmore walked over to Donovan, who sat on a crate, helmet off, hair soaked with sweat, hands steady. You emptied both guns, Whitmore said. How many did you get? The exact number would be argued for years. That day's official tally chalked up 12 confirmed kills to the tail position on Hell's Fury, with several more probables. 12. In a single mission. From a position most people saw as a death sentence. Word spread fast. By the next morning, tail gunners from other crews were knocking on Donovan's door, asking, "How did you do it?" Pilots wanted to know why this one bomber had not been ripped apart. Higher command noticed too. Within days, staff officers arrived to debrief him. One of the key figures in 8th Air Force Command sat across from Donovan and listened as the sergeant explained his core idea in plain language. "Sir, we keep teaching gunners to react. The enemy sets the tempo. They decide when to begin. That means they own your fear. If you fire first, you steal that moment. You make them cautious. You break their timing. It is not just about hits. It is about making them doubt." The general asked him just one question. "Can you teach this mindset to others?" Donovan did not pretend everyone could be Mad Mike. You need people who do not freeze. Men who would rather swing first than duck. I can find them. I can train them. But not all of them will be able to flip that switch. Command made a decision that changed the air war. They pulled him from combat and put him in front of classrooms and firing ranges. The birth of a new way to fight. In the months that followed, a quiet revolution took place. Selected tail gunners arrived at a special program. 2 weeks of brutal drills. Not just marksmanship, but psychology. They were taught to engage early, during the enemy's build-up, not just during the attack run. Use fire not only to kill but to scare, to tear apart formation discipline. Focus their fire on the most dangerous approach angle instead of trying to cover everything poorly. See ammunition as an investment. A short, early burst that prevents 12 fighters from ever getting a shot is more efficient than conserving rounds for a clean target later. Accept risk. The safest-looking choice, waiting quietly, had been killing gunners for 2 years. Some candidates could not make the mental shift. They had been wired to hunker down and protect themselves. Around a third washed out. The ones who stayed. Their results started changing the numbers across the entire theater. Over the next months, bomber loss rates dipped. Fighter attack completion rates dropped. German pilots complained in their own reports about aggressive American gunners who fire at long range and disrupt coordination. Reputation traveled on the airwaves. Fighter leaders began telling rookies, "If you see a bomber that opens up from extreme range and keeps firing through your forming up, pick a different formation. That one is not worth it." Mad Mike Donovan never went back to the tail. Instead, his style spread through the 8th Air Force, then into post-war manuals, then into the broader philosophy of air defense. A quiet grave, a loud legacy. After the war, Michael Donovan went home to Boston. There were no parades waiting. No cameras. He found work in construction. Married. Raised children. Went to work, came home, kept his stories mostly to himself. When journalists tried to interview him years later, he brushed them off. "I did my job," he would say. So did everyone else. He never saw the full stacks of reports on how much his approach reduced losses. He never read the enemy documents that warned pilots about bombers with aggressive gunners. He died in the late 1990s. His local obituary mentioned that he had served as a tail gunner and received high decorations. It did not go into detail. But among the surviving men who had sat in the backs of bombers, ice stinging from cordite, watching fighters angle toward them, his name still meant something. They remembered the first time an instructor said, "Do not let them start the fight. You start it." Aggression buys survival. They remembered the men behind that sentence. Not a myth. Not a textbook footnote. Just a South Boston kid who refused to wait for death to pick its moment. Why this story matters. Today, modern aircrews flying massive transports or gunships train on principles that echo Donovan's thinking. Early engagement. Disrupt the enemy's plan. Use fear as a weapon. Do not surrender the initiative just because you are on defense. Missile defense networks, fighter pilots, even naval gunners all apply variations of the same logic. It began, in practice if not in theory, with a tail gunner leaning into his guns over Germany and deciding that he was not going to die politely. He was going to make the enemy afraid first. Here at War Era Records, we tell these stories for a reason. Not to glorify war, but to remember that behind every statistic was a human being making impossible choices in seconds. If this story of Michael, Mad Mike Donovan and Hell's Fury made you see the air war in a new light, hit like, subscribe to War Era Records, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Every time we say these names out loud, the men who sat in those thin aluminum shells at 23,000 feet are forgotten a little less. Thank you for keeping their history alive.